Let's go to Michael in Salt Lake City, Utah. Thanks for calling the Line of Fire.
Hi. How's it going?
Very well, thanks.
So I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
So I'm a Jew, not a Messianic Jew. I'm a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And you were a Jew at one point.
I'm a Jew. Yeah, I'm a Jew.
What's that?
I'm still a Jew, to the core of my being.
Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree on that. But so here's my question. Why? Why did you turn away from Judaism? And what do you see in Jesus that says to you definitively that, yes, he is the Messiah? And because if you and I'm assuming you know Jewish thought fairly well, right? So I don't understand how you could have possibly determined that he's the Messiah when it's so clear for Jews that he's not.
So let me just find out. I'd love to answer your questions, and thanks so much for asking. We're going to have a break that comes up in a minute, so we'll continue on the other side of the break. But you're an Orthodox Jew?
No, I'm not Orthodox. I'm conservative, kind of in practice,
right,
but more reform in thought.
Okay. So you've thrown off the history of Judaism up until the last 200 years. You've thrown off the vast majority of Jewish traditions, customs, even approach to the Bible, Talmud. So that strikes me as, you don't strictly observe the Sabbath, correct?
No, not in an Orthodox way, by any means.
All right. So the way that generations of Jews would have up until the Reform movement. All right. So just something for you to ponder. I am living far more according to the Bible, according to the Hebrew Scriptures, than you are, by the way, and have far more reverence for the Scriptures as an Orthodox Jew would. So it's funny that you're questioning me about moving away from Judaism, or saying how could I question traditional beliefs when you've thrown most of them out yourself? Interesting. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our Thoroughly Jewish Thursday broadcast. This is Micheal Brown, and I'm speaking with Michael, a Jewish man in Salt Lake City, Utah. Michael, I absolutely want to answer every question you asked me, but I do find it fascinating that you're speaking about my, quote, turning away from Judaism and saying I'm no longer a Jew because I embrace Jesus, Yeshua, as the Messiah of Israel. And
well, certainly. So you say that since I'm not Orthodox, you're more Jewish than me, right? But how can that possibly be true when, and you know it as well as I do, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So, Hear, O Israel, Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You believe in the Trinity, and also your concept of Satan in Christianity is really just dualism from Zoroastrianism, that concept of the good God and then the bad God. And how can we have an omnipotent God if there's an equal and opposing rebellious force?
I don't know. I've never met anyone that believes nonsense like that in my life. Never met anyone that believes any such thing of an equal. No. Listen. You're hearing myths. You're repeating myths, Michael.
From okay? Rabbi Tovia Singer?
Yeah, you Rabbi Tovia, well. He's refused to debate me for more than 20 years. Rabbi Tovia, he has refused to debate me since our last debate for more than 20 years. Let me give you the history of Rabbi Tovia. We first met in early 1991 at the invitation of a Russian Messianic Jew. He had just come to faith in Yeshua the Messiah, and he asked me to come to his house to debate some rabbis from Baltimore on who is the Messiah according to the book of Isaiah. I said, are you serious? They're actually going to do that? He said, yeah, at my house. Well, it was a setup. He tricked me into coming over, invited Tovia Singer, Michael Skoback, Mickey Miller, and another young lady named Joanne Chinkers, who's now a missionary in Nigeria. She was an Orthodox Jew living with the Satmar Hasidim at that time, was so shaken by my debate with Rabbi Tovia. That was the beginning of her coming to a living faith in Jesus the Messiah. In any case, and when people ask her who led you to Jesus, she says Rabbi Singer did. In any case, this Messianic Jew, to my surprise when I got there, and to Tovia's surprise, then presented us with roughly a 3-hour program, all right? We were to debate sin and atonement, Messianic prophecy, things like that. And he wanted to see who of us could do better in that setting. There were maybe 15, 20 people there. People had tape recorders, pulled them out and recorded. At Rabbi Singer's request, those were never released. That's part one, okay? But Joanne was so shaken by that event. This is all public record. She was so shaken by that. That was the beginning of her leaving the error of rabbinic tradition and embracing the truth of the Messiah. Then Tovia and I did another debate that was hosted by Sid Roth. He had a radio program that aired on secular radio all over greater New York at that time. And we did a debate, secular Christian audience. We did that debate. Then Tovia and I, together with Sid, because we had to get things down. It was in the days of cassette tapes. We had to get it down to 90 minutes. So we agreed, okay, this call was extraneous. This we didn't need. We agreed on the final edit. We put it out. It was supposed to be aired on TV by CBN. We had the contract signed. Tovia said, I'll sign mine after. He then refused to sign after the whole thing had been videotaped. 2 weeks later, he had to come back on the air to apologize because he said if I could provide him with one single text in rabbinic literature saying that the Messiah, son of David, would die, one single text anywhere, or that it referred to him in Isaiah 53, that he would become a Messianic Jew. Of course, he made a silly error. I had the documentation right then, presented to him. He came back on to apologize. He said, we're not going to hold you to your promise. Obviously, it was just rhetoric. From that day on, he has refused to have a public debate with me under any circumstances. I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd give him my own airtime. I'd fly in at my expense. I'd do it in a synagogue. I'd do it in a neutral location. I'd do it in the church. I'd do it for 6 hours. I'd do it for 2 hours in a heartbeat with joy. There's even a petition that's been out for several years asking him to debate. He will not even debate a single Messianic Jew now. A couple months ago, I got a call from a Christian college in South Carolina that a representative of Rabbi Singer was saying he would come to the college and do a debate. And we said, great, I'll gladly do it. They got back to him and said, no, he will not do it. He will debate Christians, different ones, ministers. He will not debate a Messianic Jew, in particular me. He will not even talk to me on the phone. And we're talking 20 plus years now, Michael. Truth,
and why do you think that is?
God knows his reasons. I cannot say, but I can guarantee you this. He knows he's not going to win the debate. We put out a 22...
I disagree. The last one I heard, I thought he won. But maybe I'm biased because I'm a Jew. So I don't know.
You could well be biased, but the fact is we've put it on our website for free for many, many years. But let's get back to your points.
Right.
Intertestamental Judaism speaks of a satanic figure, of a devil, in terms that it is exactly the same as the New Testament. He is not an independent, omnipotent agent of any kind. He is not a borrowing from Zoroastrianism. It comes from the Tanakh, where he's referenced several times. He's referenced in the book of Job, in the book of Zechariah, and in the book of Chronicles, in First Chronicles. That's where he's explicitly referenced. He is hostile to God. He is accusing God's people. That's the role he continues in the New Testament. He is under our feet. He is a defeated foe. He is not omnipotent. He is not omnipresent. He's not omni-anything. He is a defeated, fallen angel. And if you want that same teaching, go to intertestamental Jewish literature. That's number one. Number two, of course I believe that God is Echad. Of course I do. I believe in one God only. He is complex in his unity. Where's the first reference to Echad in the Bible? Do you know, Michael? The very first reference. Where's the first reference to Echad in the Bible? The very first reference.
Couldn't tell you. You're going to have to tell me.
Genesis chapter 1. There was evening and morning, Yom Echad. So evening and morning come together as day one day. Where's the next reference to Echad in the Hebrew Bible? Genesis 2:24. The man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two will be Echad, Basar Echad, one flesh. All right? So I believe in a God who is complex in his unity. That explains why he can be seen on earth in Genesis 18, walking and talking with Abraham, and yet be transcendent, filling the universe, and sitting enthroned in heaven. I believe in one God who is complex in his unity, which is why his Ruach, his spirit, which teaches and leads and guides, is not inanimate, is intelligent, why his spirit can speak through the prophets, while his presence can fill the Mishkan, the tabernacle, while his glory can fill the universe, while he can sit on his throne, and at the same time appear to people like in the temple in Isaiah the 6th chapter, where Isaiah sees the Lord high and lifted up. The Messiah had to come and begin his mission before the second temple was destroyed. He had to
Okay.
fill that temple with glory. He had to die for the sins of the world and rise again in harmony with the Jewish teaching, mitatan shel tzadikim techaper. The death of the atonement, the death of the righteous atones, is taught often in the Talmud and Midrashic literature. He had to fulfill those scriptures. He had to fulfill what was written about his death, his resurrection by the people of Israel, his being received by the Gentiles, and then after that, being welcomed back by his people Israel. All is happening right on time. It's all according to the Jewish scriptures. And by following these, I'm now functioning in my capacity to be a Jew and thereby be a light to the world.
So how then do you reconcile, believing in Jesus with the fact that God explicitly says that he's not a man? And I can't give you the verse or the chapter or anything along those lines, but I know it's in there. And he says he's not a man. And I'm sure you probably know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, you've debated a lot of Jews, and I'm sure they've brought this point up to you before.
God isn't a man. Of course he's not a man.
Then is Jesus God?
Here's the question. Can God manifest himself? So what does the New Testament say? The Word became flesh. This is an aspect of God. This is part of who God is.
No,
and the
you can't use the New
called
Testament, though. You have to use the Old Testament because the New Testament
Genesis
means
chapter
nothing to
8,
me.
Genesis. What I'm trying to explain is the New Testament does not just say Jesus is God. It says the Word, which is the divine utterance, the divine mind, the Son becomes flesh. So yeah, I can show you in the Hebrew Bible where God appears as a man. Can God, the creator of the universe, appear in human form if he wants? Numbers 23:19, God is not a man. Repeat it in 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter. God is not a man. And in the context is he's not a man that he should lie. However, is there anything in the Bible that says that God cannot appear in human form? That God cannot come down in our midst while remaining eternal God? Remember, he's the Ein Sof. He's the infinite one. So he comes down and pitches his tent in our midst. Genesis 18, read it clearly. Yahweh, God, appears with two angels and talks to Abraham face to face and has a meal with Abraham and talks to Sarah. And then when the two angels leave to go to Sodom, Abraham has an extensive conversation face to face with God, after which God leaves. So explicit in the Hebrew Bible, God can appear in human form. So my question to you, is it impossible for an infinite God to sit enthroned in heaven, fill the universe with his glory, and appear in human form? If you can stay on, I want to talk to you a little bit more, then I'm going to try to get some other calls. Also, can I send you a book for free? Absolutely free. We won't put your name on any mailing list. If I can, tell Betsy.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Micheal Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Here again is Dr. Micheal Brown.
You know, I've actually written 5 volumes, 1,500 pages, with countless hundreds of endnotes, answering Jewish objections to Jesus, demolishing a lot of these arguments, but in detail, with lots of documentation from the scriptures, from the Hebrew scriptures, and from rabbinic literature as well. And then, because Tovia Singer put out a tape series that was widely used, widely distributed years back, I actually did a lecture series, 22-hour lecture series, taking a lot of my book material and putting it into audio form and video form, countering the counter-missionaries. And I devoted a special time there to demolishing some of his arguments because they had been widely used. So we've got a lot of material out there, and then some of it condensed in the one volume, The Real Kosher Jesus. Hey, Michael, I love having this conversation. I want to get to a couple of other callers, and we'll gladly send you books. As long as you read it, that's all I'm asking is that you read it. I know you're going to read it from your viewpoint, but like I do with anything, I just pray. I prayed regularly. I don't mean together, side by side, but I prayed a prayer privately, and an ultra-Orthodox rabbi prayed a prayer privately, because we've had dialogue for years, and he's written a lot of responses to what I've written, and we've had great interaction for many years. But for a period of time, we would talk on the phone once a week for about 45 minutes to an hour, discussing issues, not Tovia Singer, but this ultra-Orthodox rabbi. And he agreed to pray a prayer with me. So when I pray it, I pray for him, and I pray for me, And then he reverses it, praying for me and for him. So I pray for him by name and for me, that God would give us the courage to follow the truth wherever it leads, regardless of cost or consequence. So I think that's always a healthy prayer to pray, because
Certainly.
more than anything else, I want to please God as a Jew. I don't care what I lose. I don't care what I suffer. I don't care what happens. I don't care who likes me or doesn't like me. I want my whole life to be pleasing to God as his Jewish son, whatever that means. That's what I desire. And I have great respect and esteem for many religious Jews and religious traditions, and I believe that God's used them to help keep our people through the ages, and yet I differ categorically with other points. But just my one question for you, sir, is this. Can God, who's the Ein Sof, the one without beginning or end, the infinite one,
Right.
can he simultaneously fill the universe with his presence, sit enthroned in heaven, and appear in human form on the earth?
I mean, I suppose it's possible. I don't believe that he's done that. But I guess, it's possible. He's God. He can do whatever it is he wants to do. But I have one more question for you,
Sure.
which is, when Mashiach comes, it's supposed to be worldwide, recognition of God, right? Well, that hasn't happened. There's plenty of people there's atheists, there's agnostics, there's Muslims who, they say they worship the same God as us, but it's quite different. And that hasn't happened. And so if these things haven't happened, how is Jesus the Messiah? It just doesn't seem to add up to me.
Yeah, it's a great question. If the Bible said that the Messiah will appear one time, and when he appears, the whole world will come to acknowledge God, you'd be 100% right, except that's not what it says. It
Where
indicates
does it say he's going to come twice?
It says, if you look, for example, the end of Isaiah 52, it says he'll be highly exalted, starting in verse 13. Those are the words it starts with. He'll act wisely or prosper. He'll be highly exalted. And then next verse 14, but he will suffer terribly. He will suffer terrible disfigurement. And then as you go through reading Isaiah 53, he'll first be rejected by our people and die a terrible death. This happens first. According to Isaiah 49, the Messiah speaking first person, he says that it looks like his mission failed, that he was unable to regather Israel. And God says, no, you won't just do that, but you're actually going to be a light to the Gentiles, a light to the nations. So he'll be rejected by his people, he'll be a light to the nations, and then ultimately he'll be received. What about the Talmudic discussion in the Tractate Sanhedrin in the Talmud beginning in 96b, where it asks the question, it quotes from Zechariah 9:9, that the king of Israel, the Messiah, will come riding on a donkey, meek and lowly, riding on a donkey. And then it quotes from Daniel 7:13 and 14, where it says that he'll come riding in the clouds. And it asks the question, will he come meek and lowly riding on a donkey or riding in the clouds? And the answer is, if we're worthy, he'll come in the clouds. If we're not worthy, he'll come riding on a donkey. So then the obvious question is this. The Bible doesn't say it's either or. The Bible says it's both and. How can that be? First, he comes riding on a donkey in accordance with Malachi, the 3rd chapter, Haggai, the 2nd chapter, and Daniel, the 9th chapter. He has to do these things before the second temple is destroyed. He comes and makes atonement for Israel. He is rejected by the nation, received by the Gentiles. His mission now continues through the world. There are now hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of worshipers of the God of Israel through the Messiah that did not exist in his day. And at the end of the age, there'll be a turning of the Jewish people, and as Jewish people welcome him, then he'll return. I can show you all that just from the Hebrew Scriptures. So there are two parts to the mission, Michael. That's the critical thing. And should it surprise us, we rejected Moses at times in our history. We rejected the prophets. The vast majority of Jews around the world today are not Torah observant, are not Shomer Shabbat, are not following the dietary laws, can't read the Talmud on their own. So they have rejected biblical truth and rabbinic tradition. Should it surprise us that when the Messiah came, we missed him? Look, we've been in exile most of this history. The temple was destroyed and never rebuilt. Could there be something to that? So if you understand this rightly, you're light years ahead of most in that you know who Tovia Singer is, you know who I am, You've thought about
Right.
the issues. You have intelligent questions, intelligent objections. But what
Right.
I'd like to do is this, in a way that's not going to be a matter of who wins, which Michael wins, Salt Lake City or the radio host, right? But a matter of two men who want to live for God as Jews, whether you accept me as a Jew or not is immaterial. And in a calm, dispassionate way, what are the facts? So listen, I've got to run, but here's the deal. Because of the nature of your call, I didn't take any of the calls this entire time. Those on hold, I apologize. If you can call tomorrow, if you've been waiting, I'll put you up first, all right? But Michael, I'm sending you the book, The Real Kosher Jesus. And you know what? I'll throw in a debate I did with Rabbi Shmuley also on Isaiah 53. Did Jesus die for our sins? So the book, The Real Kosher Jesus, to read, the debate. Once you have a chance, you don't have to stop life to do this. Once you have a chance to watch the debate, listen, then give me a call back, all right? And we can continue our discussion. But thank you, sir, for the call. Much appreciated. From Micheal to Micheal, much appreciated. And thank you, sir, for listening. So we'll get those out to you. The Real Kosher Jesus and Did Jesus Die for Our Sins? Thank you, sir, for the call. Much appreciated.